And you touched upon something important, Anshu, which is about storytelling.
Yeah.
In fact, there is a saying, the future belongs to the right, which means people who use the right side of the brain.
Yep.
How did Anshu cultivate his right when all he was using is the left side in the job?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I wish more people understood. And I say that because storytelling, as a phrase is also used like non-stop in corporate life, in every board meeting, in every sales meeting, and everybody's like, let's do storytelling. And I don't think we understand. Like in corporate life, very rarely people understand what storytelling is really about. And it takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of self-awareness to be a good storyteller. Right. It just doesn't happen because we're not talking about telling stories like, that once there was a king and a queen. That's all okay. But now either in business or in stand-up comedies, the stories have very different impacts, so to say. And I believe it's a game of three things largely. The mindset, the skill set, and the tool set that you need to tell stories, right? Mindset is the most important in my view, because you need to first understand what stories are. Sure. Right? There is always a beginning, there's always a middle, there's always an end. Middle is where the complexity is, right? And if you don't make the complexity, if you're not articulate about that, if you don't make it strong enough, the beginning and the end doesn't matter, right? How many movies have we seen where we came out and said, we didn't like it. And the only problem we didn't like it was, largely, the only problem was that there was no real complexity, right? That had to get resolved in the end. Sure. And we couldn't just connect there, right? And that kind of a mindset, to be always in that mode, to understand how to tell stories, what is the structure, how to understand what you're saying, to be succinct while you're saying it, the usage of words, all of those things come into play. Skill sets is just a different aspect of it. It requires a lot of practice. Like when I went up on stage the first time, I still have that video of me doing my first 10 minutes on stage. And now I look at it and I was like, oh my God, there were so many things which are wrong with it. The way I was talking, the way I was holding the mic, the way I was moving on stage, right? But the whole thing was I went back and saw it and then made changes. In corporate life, we don't do that. Exactly. Right? We don't like every show that I do as a stand-up, pretty much, not only me, every comedian, every single show that we do, we record it on our phone. Wow. Voice recording, if not video. Okay, voice recording, 100% every show is recorded. And then mostly on the same night when we have done the show, we could, after the show, we might go to a party, we might do whatever. But when we come back home or to a hotel room, we would listen to that show again, the full 1 hour on the same night. Because you remember the faces, you remember the reactions, and then when you're listening to it, then you understand on this joke, the laugh was bigger, on this, they didn't get it, right? And then you start making changes to your material. But you do listen every single time. And you, like I said, like 600 plus or whatever shows, I have listened to those shows every single time, and we make changes. We don't do that in corporate life. I mean, you can't record most of the stuff, but even if you have to just think about what you had said, the number of words you had used, whether the impact was strong enough or not. Those things, I think that's where the skill set comes in. That's where the practice comes in. You need to be really, really into telling stories, become a good storyteller. Right? It's not a phrase that you can use in corporate life and get away with it. Absolutely. So I think that really comes into play. Tools are all easy. Everybody now has tools, right? The phone, the laptop, the software, all of that thing is okay. But it's the mindset and the skill set that people need to focus on. Wonderful. And it's not something you dabble on the side. It's something which requires hard work. It's core. You need to believe in the fact that it is core to your existence, because stories connect. It's as simple as that, right? Stories always connect. Whether you're sitting in a boardroom or you're sitting with your friends and having tea, stories is what we have been brought up on. And that's the only way of connecting with people, especially with strangers. And that you need to strongly believe in. Excellent. Now I'm curious about one more thing, Anshu. Remember, as a stand-up comedian, you need to stay fresh. Yeah. That means you need to keep learning. Yeah. How does Anshu learn? which is that's the most difficult part of it. I thought the life would be much easier becoming a stand-up comedian. I was like, jokes would just come, So I would be sitting in a coffee shop the whole day drinking coffee, and suddenly I would think of a joke. But then I realized, no, it's not that. So there are two things which help, at least me. One is reading a lot of stuff.
Very nice.
And when I say reading, it's not just about reading about comedy or about the art or about comedians' biographies or anything like that. It's about reading different things, which adds perspective, right? Things that you're not even interested in sometimes, but you would just go pick up and say, hey, well, let me read a few pages and see where it goes. That just keeps your mind fresh. I read somewhere very early in the career, I read somewhere that when you're as a writer, as a comedian, when you are inspired, write. Right? When you're not inspired, read.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So your brain always moves. I think that is one thing surely that kind of really helps in this format. And the second is being more observant. It's both a skill set and a curse, frankly speaking, because now we seem to be observing too many things. But just keeping your mind open to stuff is very, very important. Like now, when I go to parties, I think I'm quieter than I used to be when I was in corporate life.
Right.
Because there I was trying to be funny and making everybody laugh and having a good time. Now in parties, I'm just observing people, what they're saying, what they're thinking. I think about those things. So the brain is always functioning. So I think that those things really help.
Very nice. And in a way, I mean, what you're saying is, how do you see what others don't?
Yes. You have to peel the layers, right? You have to peel the layers. The thing, you remember there's this thing called mind maps that we often use, right? It's a technique you'll be surprised that a lot of comedians use. I use it like crazy. And the reason I use it is because you look at anything that is going around you. And when I start thinking about jokes, right, you create the first layer of connections. Those are the most obvious ones. That is what a bad comedian would joke about. Right? But when you start peeling the layer, which is when you start going into the next level of nodes and the next level of nodes, the jokes really come at the outer level, the good ones, right? Because that's when you have figured the most simplest aspect of what you wanted to say. And it is something that others wouldn't think. So you as an audience, when I'm talking about whatever it is, right? If I crack a joke, you'll be like, hey, this is very relatable. I could have done this. But the fact is you didn't sit with the mind map and create around a thing like, let's say, a donut, but I do it. Okay?
Correct.
So the more you peel the layers, I think the more simple it becomes and the more relatable it becomes. And surely the funnier it becomes.
Very nice.